Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Jay here with yet another edition of Faith Evolved. In today's episode, 14 of the most outrageous claims that the Urantia Book makes. Stay tuned. All right, so I'm going to go through 14 outrageous claims that the Urantia Book makes, in no particular order. But the first one is probably the most controversial of them all. And that has to do with the origins of the 196 papers that make up the Urantia Book. And essentially, the papers claim that the texts in them are conveyed to us by celestial beings. It doesn't say who it's channeled through, if you want to use that word, or spoken through. But if you do some research on the internet, you'll find that there's a Dr. Sadler who had a patient that when he fell asleep, he would start speaking in someone else's voice. And they started asking this person questions and, eventually started getting answers from these celestial beings through the sleeping subject. And eventually, these 196 papers came forth over some period of time. So, of course, when I first started reading the Urantia Book, I was like, that's crazy. I didn't even know about that right away. It wasn't for maybe a few months into reading it that I discovered the origins of the book. But by that point, I had already been so enamored and just so awestruck by just how everything made sense and the truth that I found in it. It kind of made sense that it had to have come from a higher intelligence. And people say, oh, that's dangerous. That's satanic. What if Satan is trying to deceive you through that? What do you mean God? What do you mean the angels, celestial beings are speaking this, or channeling this information to us? Well, if you think about it, pretty much any religious book, any holy book, has divine origins. I mean, look at the Bible. How many times did God appear, or Jesus appear, or angels, burning bush? I mean, just so many different things in the Bible. Gabriel, just examples of, celestial beings, angels, God himself appearing and having people write things down. And you can find, many examples of different religious books that have divine origins. So this is not, something new here. So again, I think it comes down to what you read in the book. Does it resonate with you? Does it make sense? Does it speak the truth? Does it sound like something God would say or someone more intelligent than human beings would say? You be the judge. All right, so for number 2, and this is probably one of my favorite ones because it reminds me of like Star Trek or maybe like a Marvel movie or something like that. And it's that we could all be whisked away to another planet by celestial beings if there's ever going to be some kind of worldwide catastrophe or an extinction level event that could wipe out all of humanity. And it says here in paper 51, while there is this dematerializing technique for preparing the atoms for transit from Jerusalem to the evolutionary worlds, there is no equivalent method for taking them away from such worlds unless the entire planet is to be emptied, in which event emergency installation of the dematerialization technique is made for the entire salvable population. If some physical catastrophe should doom the planetary residents of an evolving race, the Melchizedeks and the life carriers would install the technique of dematerialization for all survivors, and by seraphic transport, these beings would be carried away to the new world prepared for their continuing existence. Well, beam me up, Scotty. Climate change. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing that, if this world was ever to be doomed, like maybe an asteroid was going to come and wipe us out, they're not going to let that happen. They're going to save us and bring us to another planet. Unreal. So number 3, we will have intimate experiences analogous of sex on the mansion worlds. Yes, you heard that right, folks. So as we are in this mortal form today, obviously we have sex organs, we have penis and the vagina, and we procreate using those, and there's some enjoyment in that. And there are people that are concerned that when we die and, if we're in the heavens, are we still going to be enjoying similar experiences? And they actually touch on that in the Urantia Book, which I found quite interesting. And this is going to be a pretty long read here, so bear with me, but it'll be worth your time. So paper 45, it says, on the 7 mansion worlds, ascending mortals are afforded ample opportunities for compensating any and all experiential deprivations suffered on their world of origin, whether due to inheritance, environment, or unfortunate premature termination of their career in the flesh. This is in every sense true, except in the mortal sex life and its attendant adjustments. Thousands of mortals reach the mansion worlds without having benefited, particularly from the disciplines derived from a fairly average sex relations on the native spheres. The mansion world experience can provide little opportunity for compensating these very personal deprivations. Sex experience in a physical sense is past for these ascenders, but in close association with the material sons and daughters, both individually and as members of their families, these sex-deficient mortals are enabled to compensate the social, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual aspects of their deficiency. Thus are all those humans whom circumstances or bad judgment deprived of the benefits of advantageous sex association on the evolutionary worlds, here on the system capitals afforded full opportunity to acquire these essential mortal experiences in close and loving association with the supernal Adamic sex creatures of permanent residence on the system capitals. So it's not going to be, sexual intercourse as we know it, but it sounds like, besides the physical act, there'll be some other emotional and spiritual and, just other intimate ways that we can experience relationships on the mansion world. So I found that quite interesting, and I'm sure a lot of you folks might as well. All right, so number 4. Do you know how the Bible says Elijah and Enoch, they translated straight to heaven? They got to bypass death, and they just went up poof, in chariots of fire? Well, the Urantia Book says that actually happened. They call it translating. It says here of Elijah, a translated soul of brilliant spiritual achievement during the post-material sun age. And of Enoch, it says, the first of the mortals of Urantia to fuse with the thought adjuster during the mortal life in the flesh. So essentially, they achieved everything they needed to in their human life and didn't have to go through the natural process of dying and translated straight to heaven or to the mansion worlds. And what's even better about that is it's not just them. In the future, more and more people will attain spiritual advancement sufficient enough to qualify to translate. And there actually will even be translation temples throughout the planet in the far future. And it says here in paper 110, when a human being has completed the circles of cosmic achievement, and further, when the final choosing of the mortal will permits the adjuster to complete the association of human identity with the morontial soul during the evolutionary and physical life, then do such consummated liaisons of soul and adjuster, or spirit, I'll go into that later, go on independently to the mansion worlds, and there is issued the mandate from Uversa, which provides for the immediate fusion of the adjuster and the morontial soul. The fusion during physical life instantly consumes the material body. The human beings who might witness such a spectacle would only observe the translating mortal disappear in chariots of fire. So there you have it, folks. It actually did happen. And, if you knew someone that was, always meditating and super, godly and, charitable, and they just disappeared one day, well, maybe they translated straight to the mansion worlds. All right, so number 5, and this is also just as controversial as the first one, actually, and it's the claim that Jesus did not, I repeat, did not die for our sins to secure salvation. In the life and teachings of Jesus, it is made clear that the mission of Jesus was to teach the world that God is a Father, a loving Father, and that we are all His children. He taught the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. And although He did die on a cross, this was because He was found guilty of threatening the existing Jewish religious system. He did not have to die to appease the wrath of an angry God. And that goes completely against the whole idea of a loving God. It does, however, say that He is the way, the truth, the life, the way of salvation, and He was resurrected, and He does offer us salvation or survival to anyone who wants it. All right, so number 6, and I love this one, and it's about guardian angels. And it says that guardian angels are real. And when you get a guardian angel assigned to you, she follows you for ages, from lifetime to lifetime, until you reach paradise. It says here in paper 113, the teaching about guardian angels is not a myth. Certain groups of human beings do actually have personal angels. Some angels actually maintain groups of people. And they're not, there to arbitrarily intervene in your life and make you do things or tell you to do things or intervene, but they do try to, work with your decisions and make the best of them. And they guard you. But it says also, they are the beings who are going to follow you from many an age, and they are thus receiving an introduction to their future work and personality association. It is their honor. It is what the thing they aspire to the most, is to get a human being, a mortal ward, if you will, to guide all the way to the Universal Father in paradise. All right, number 7. And on the topic of angels still, this one's about transport angels. Literally angels who transport us throughout space and time. They literally encapsulate us. I guess their form like surrounds us and actually transports us places. It says right here in paper 39, when enseraphimed, you go to sleep for a specified time, and you will wake up at the designated moment. The length of the journey when in transit sleep is immaterial. You are not directly aware of the passing of time. It is as if you went to sleep on a transport vehicle in one city and, after resting in peaceful slumber all night, awakened in another and distant metropolis. You journeyed while you slumbered, and so you take flight through space enseraphimed while you rest, sleep. The transit sleep is induced by the liaison between the adjusters and the seraphic transporters. That's just amazing. All right, and number 8, and this one's kind of more for fun, and it's again talking about angels, or more broadly celestial beings for that matter. And some spirit beings can travel much faster than the speed of light. And you think about it, it makes sense because, theoretically, material items can never go faster than the speed of light. Just virtually impossible, scientifically impossible. But spirit beings, they're beyond material. And it says here in paper 23, their velocity in traversing space is variable, depending on a great variety of interfering influences. But the record shows that on the journey to fulfill this mission, my associate messenger proceeded at the rate of 841,621,642,000 of your miles per second of your time. And that's talking about the solitary messenger, the fastest known celestial being in the universe, apparently. So there's something for fun there. All right, on to number 9. This one is about architectural spheres. They are literally worlds that are made to order, planets that are created. And these planets are, some of them are the mansion worlds and beyond that we'll eventually be living on. And it says here in paper 15, while each super universe government presides near the center of the evolutionary universes of its space segment, it occupies a world made to order and is peopled by accredited personalities. These headquarters worlds are architectural spheres, space bodies specifically constructed for their special purpose. While sharing the light of nearby suns, these spheres are independently lighted and heated. Each has a sun which gives forth light without heat, like the satellites of paradise, while each is supplied with heat by the circulation of certain energy currents near the surface of the sphere. These headquarters worlds belong to one of the greater systems situated near the astronomical center of their respective super-universes. Wow. I mean, to be able to see a world that was literally created, that's just astonishing. All right, we're on to number 10. And this is probably the most important claim, most earth-shattering, world-changing, just consequential concept in the entire Urantia book. And it is the concept of the thought adjuster. And it's discussed in detail between papers 107 and 111. And essentially, the thought adjuster is said to be this fragment of the spirit of the Universal Father living inside our minds. It's also known as the mystery monitor or the God fragment. And the job of the thought adjuster is to literally spiritualize our mind to become more like God so that our souls can live for eternity. The most amazing part of this is that eventually we will fuse with the fragment of God's Spirit for all eternity, making these potential human mortals, if you will, eternal personalities for all eternity in the universe. And it says here in paper 107, any mortal who has seen a creator son, like Jesus, has seen the Universal Father. And he who is indwelt by a divine adjuster is indwelt by the Paradise Father. Every mortal who is consciously or unconsciously following the leading of his indwelling adjuster is living in accordance with the will of God. Consciousness of adjuster presence is consciousness of God's presence. Eternal fusion of the adjuster with the evolutionary soul of man is the factual experience of eternal union with God as a universe associate of deity. I mean, this implies that literally, this is what makes us eternal beings. This is what promises us eternal life. That God's spirit will fuse with our personalities as humans, and we will become a permanent fixture in all of the universe. All right, so we're on to number 11, and I thank you for your patience so far. We're almost there. So this one is all about the planet being quarantined because of the Lucifer rebellion. And some people have said, why haven't we seen other aliens? There has to be other aliens. There's billions and trillions of stars, and there's no way we're all alone in the universe. But maybe we're not all alone in the universe, but we're being segregated and isolated on purpose. And that's, there's been some rumors and some conjecture and theories about that postulated on the internet and stuff like that. But this book seems to say that's the case. We have high beings like Lucifer and Satan, who are high beings in our local universe of Nebadon, who went against the way of Michael. Michael being the highest celestial being in our entire universe, also known as Jesus when he incarnated on Earth. And they tried to go against Michael's rule, to take matters into their own hands, and also deny the existence of the Father in paradise. And as a result of their sin, we have been cut off from communication with neighboring planets. And they actually had a few other planets in on it as well. And there's several planets in our, what we call the local system of planets that are cut off from the system circuits of the entire universe. It says here in paper 53, all secession propaganda had to be carried on by personal effort because the broadcast service and all the other avenues of interplanetary communication were suspended by the action of the system circuit supervisors. Upon the actual outbreak of the insurrection, the entire system of Satania was isolated in both the constellation and the universe circuits. During this time, all incoming and outgoing messages were dispatched by seraphic agents and solitary messengers. The circuits to the fallen worlds were also cut off, us among them, so that Lucifer could not utilize this avenue for the furtherance of his nefarious scheme. All these circuits will be not restored so long as the arch-rebel lives within the confines of Satania. Another part here in paper 67. Meantime, the system circuits have been severed. Urantia was isolated. Every group of celestial life on the planet found itself suddenly and without warning isolated, utterly cut off from all outside counsel and advice. So there you go, folks. We are isolated, and I think until the whole Lucifer situation is taken care of and it's adjudicated and he's done away with or somehow repents, which they don't think he will, we're isolated, folks. We're not in contact with other planets and other celestial beings or aliens. So that's the reason for that, according to the Urantia Book. All right, we're on to number 12. It is another outrageous claim the Urantia Book makes, that the human race is partially comprised of alien DNA. Yes, you heard that right, folks. Alien DNA. Now, they won't use the word alien DNA, but it says in the Urantia Book, about 37,934 years ago, from the year 2020, Adam and Eve arrived on Earth. They were celestial beings called material sons and daughters who incarnated for the purpose of helping rehabilitate the world after the Lucifer rebellion, and Caligastia, who was the leader of the planets, who also fell with them, and to help us through our isolation and its effect on humanity, as well as uplift the race. They were to teach humanity so that they could advance spiritually and physically, and then eventually their children, Adam and Eve's children, were to mate amongst themselves, and then eventually mate with humans, and impart some of their more advanced genetics and DNA into the human race. They were somewhat successful, but they defaulted in their mission after a little over a century. Because of their mistake, their consequence was they had to die of natural causes as normal mortals. The story of Adam and Eve in the Bible was inspired by that event. And if you want to see the whole story, read paper 74 and 75 in the Urantia Book. All right, we're on to number 13, and this is going to be quick because it's going to lead into the last and final point, number 14, and that we live in the local universe of Nebadon, which, once it's fully evolved, will consist of 1 million habitable planets, okay? And that's just one local universe. Well, the entire grand universe, which has 7 super universes that are segmented into, will have a total of 700,000 local universes for a grand total of 7 trillion potentially habitable planets. And that doesn't even include the outer space levels, which are still in the process of forming and may very well have exponentially more habitable planets. All right, so the last and final claim, number 14, Michael. He is the sovereign or the virtual God of the universe. He incarnated here as Jesus. And like I said, we're one of a million potentially habitable planets in this universe of Nebadon. And he chose to incarnate here. We are very, very blessed and fortunate. It says here in paper 37, at the head of all personality in Nebadon stands the creator and master son, Michael, the universe father and sovereign. Paper 119 says Joshua ben Joseph, the Jewish baby, was conceived and was born into the world just as all other babies before and since, except that this particular baby was the incarnation of Michael of Nebadon, a divine son of paradise and the creator of all this local universe of things and beings. Folks, and no matter how much this world is painful and it hurts and it's torture, Jesus came here. Michael came here, and he lived a life just like the rest of us. He went through it all, and he can relate to us. And that can never be taken away from us. Thanks for watching, folks, and God bless.